It's Matariki time here in New Zealand, and for me that signals the end of the growing season and the beginning of the next growing season. And I like to take a pause to reflect on what has been and what changes I might want to make in the year ahead. So today I thought I'd share my reflections on what's been going on in the chicken flock and with my backyard growing systems. First thing to talk about is the chicken flock and what the flock is looking like and what I have been thinking about with it and doing with it. With the chicken flock, the most recent thing that I've had going on is my autumn hatch, and they've now grown up to the point where it's time for the cockerels to go on from here because they're starting to get a little bit pesky, and the pullets are not too far away from starting to lay. Now, as it has turned out with this hatch, I've ended up with 5 pullets and 7 cockerels once it was all said and done, which isn't a terrible hatch ratio, but of course it's always better when it goes the other way and you have more pullets than cockerels. But anyway, I've ended up with 5 pullets, which is great because another thing which has been going on in the flock is that my hens have been getting older. Now, I have a full sort of age range going through, but the older ones are starting to get quite old at this point. I've got some in there that are 5. I've got some in there that are 6 years old. So they've sort of reached the end of their productive lifespan and they're just kind of retired, living their retired old lady lives. So they're happy. And I've also had a few losses of hens because, again, they are starting to get older. So I needed to fill in those gaps with new productive laying hens, which hopefully we're all good for that. We'll find out pretty soon when they start laying. And that has also been a slight change in direction that I've decided to try out with the breeds that I am using in my flock. With this latest hatch, I have gone with more laying-focused breeds that are less likely to go broody and are going to be a bit more productive, including, hopefully, laying through the winter time, which is great. But the flip side of focusing on the laying breeds is that the cockerels are smaller because laying breeds are smaller than the sort of dual-purpose, heavier breeds that have formed the basis of my flock thus far. And that's all well and good, except for when you're trying to move on your surplus cockerels, which is to use them for food. They're a smaller piece of meat, essentially, at the end of the day. So usually I sort of give away or sell my cockerels for a nominal fee of $5, something like that. And that's been great. People are lining up to come and pick them up. But in this case, I might have to work a little bit harder to find someone who wants to take a laying breed cockerel because the work is the same to get it ready for the table and they're just not as big as they usually are. I have one cockerel who was a barred rock cross, and he is so much bigger than his hatchmates. So it's quite illustrative of the difference between those light laying breeds and the heavier dual purpose. In terms of thinking about the year coming and what I might get up to with the chicken flock from that perspective, I am going to continue looking at how that laying breed fits into the flock. And I was going to keep a rooster to sort of move in that direction because my other roosters are starting to get a little old at this point. The youngest of them is coming up on 4 years old and he's starting to sort of think about retirement, that life would be better if he didn't have to work so hard. So I was hoping to get a nice young rooster to sort of fill the gap for him and hopefully take some responsibility off his feathery shoulders. But in this hatch, I didn't really get any sort of outstanding roosters, and I also didn't get any purebred New Hampshire roosters hatched. So I'm thinking about doing another hatch in the springtime of just the New Hampshire eggs so that I have more opportunity to pick pick a purebred rooster to move forward in the genetics of the flock as a whole. So watch this space. I'll probably do a spring hatch this year, but I am still really, really enjoying the autumn hatches where the chicks are raised through the winter. So they're coming up now on the point where they're finished, they're raised, the pullets are nearly fully grown, the cockerels are ready to move on, and it's just been so calm and chill because the whole flock is calm and chill through the winter time. In the springtime, I normally have to move those cockerels on a bit earlier because they just get up to more shenanigans faster because everything's kind of ramped up and happening in the flock. And winter is just so chill, and I really am enjoying that process. Let's move on to the growing systems, because ultimately the reason I have so many chickens is to drive my backyard food production, and that's what they're here for. So this year I have gone with an intentional cover crop system in the off season, which of course is now. Now, usually what I do is I just clear the garden beds and let whatever is going to grow from seeds that are already in the soil just grow, and that's sort of my cover crop. But this year I went with actually putting in intentional cover crops, and the one next to me is a mixture of wheat and oats and vetch and some clovers. And the chickens thought that that was pretty cool because the cover I've got on it clearly wasn't sufficient enough to keep them out of it. So they've been nibbling away at that cover crop at whatever they can get to. So only the middle of it is really growing effectively. But hey, that's what happens when you share the backyard with your chickens. But in the rest of the beds, I've also put down that same sort of wheat, oats, vetch kind of mix. And I've also put in, I just went through my seed storage area and just found everything that was old and about to expire, and I just threw everything out to see what would grow. And that's sort of what's growing in the other beds around me, and that's been working really, really well. I can come out and get a little harvest off for a salad or to give to the chickens or to cut and take to the milking cow. So that was kind of what I was hoping for, and it is working out pretty well. Got to get those cover crops in before the winter really kicks in, and I pretty much managed to get them in, but there are a couple of beds that I was a bit late on and a couple of beds that don't get a lot of sunlight in the winter, and they're not so great on the cover crop front, but hey, it's an experiment and so far working out fairly well. This past growing season, I ran an experiment on weed management. So previously, I had just gone with what I call the chaos garden system, where I just let the weeds grow and I come out and cut them down or pull them out and leave them sitting on the soil surface. And that works really, really well and is excellent for soil health, but it requires enough time to be coming out regularly, like every couple of days, and dealing with the weeds. Otherwise, they sort of take over and drown out the plants you're actually trying to grow. So I was looking for a weed management system that would keep the soil health good, but be a little bit less demanding on my time. And I tried out two different systems. I tried a wool matting weed mat that I rolled out and planted in between, or cut holes in it and put the plants straight in. And I tried using thick wood chip mulch. Now, both of them worked really, really well, but there were some differences. So we'll start with the wool mulch. Now, this worked excellently for keeping weeds at bay, but the soil wasn't quite as good underneath as with the previous chaos gardening system, and also not quite as good as the wood chip mulch. But it's sort of, there's not a lot in it. I wouldn't say don't use wool mulch for that reason. It was fine. But the wool mulch did decay very rapidly on my very active soils. So I have some here that I've pulled off, and this went out in nice big sheets, and it's kind of, well, not nice big sheets anymore. I was hoping to be able to roll the wool off the garden at the end of the season and use it at least one more time. But whilst this can be used a bit more, it's going to be much less efficient for rolling out in rows and things like that. So it decayed too quickly to be sort of financially viable, I think, because I had to buy that and lay it out. So that's sort of a mark against the wool mulch, but it did work well for keeping the weeds at bay, and it worked really well for moisture management. So the second method I trialed was using a thick wood chip mulch on top of the garden beds. Now, this is a little bit more, you have to plan a little bit more because it's a thick mulch, it's going to stop things from growing through it quite effectively, and it's sort of hard to keep track of. So it has to go in after you've planted your plants and they've grown up enough, because the mulch needs to go in and you need to sort of put it in around the plants. So you can't sort of put it down and then plant. Well, you can, but you're going to have to move the mulch away and dig a big hole and it falls back in, and it's just a bit more problematic. But it worked really well for keeping weeds at bay, and it also worked really, really well for the soil health underneath. When I cleared the mulch off of the garden beds at the end of the season, the soil was beautiful and the worms were right there at the soil surface. So thumbs up on that method for general soil health. The main negative to the thick wood chip system is that at the end of the season, it's kind of a nuisance to get it out of the way to put your cover crop down, because your cover crop's not going to establish very well just on top of a wood chip mulch. I mean, you're using it to keep weeds at bay. You're sort of using it to stop plants from growing there. So it needs to be cleared back. So I had to be out there sort of raking it away to then put the cover crop down. And then I'm looking at this pile of mulch at the side of the bed going, am I going to leave it there? Am I going to move it away? So there's just a little bit of planning there. But between the two systems, they're both totally fine. It's a bit easier to get the wool mulch down, and it is really easy to get it up again. So thumbs up on that method for ease of use. But it is expensive, and it doesn't look like it's going to do 2 seasons. Your mileage may vary. This is a very active sort of climate here. There's water, there's good temperatures for everything to break down quickly. So if you're living somewhere else, you might get more than just the 1 season out of it. Behind me here is my garlic bed for this year, and I really, really love growing garlic. There's just something about planting those cloves in the middle of winter where nothing else is happening and you're not really thinking about being in the garden, to go out on a nice winter day and plant the garlic. And then it is really awesome because about 6 months later in the summertime, when not much else is in full harvest mode yet, you're harvesting the garlic, and I just really like how it sort of bookends the seasons. So garlic is something I've been growing ongoing for quite a few years now. I think this is maybe year 6 of growing garlic, and I keep garlic every year to plant. So this is my own garlic that I have been growing for years, and I also really like that about the garlic. So when I grow my garlic, I get my cloves. Now this is just a small one that has been saved for eating, so the ones I planted were bigger than this. But I take the large outer cloves, check them over, make sure they're all good. And once we hit winter, they've been stored for sort of 6 months, they're starting to sprout. So I know they're good. And I can see the little green shoots starting to come on the cloves that I'm going to plant. So I pick the best ones and I plant them. And I get really excited at exactly the point that this garlic's at right now when I see the shoots coming out and I'm like, yes, it's working. There's going to be more garlic. So the garlic is just one of my favorite crops, and I'm going to keep growing it, well, as long as I possibly can, because it's not one of those things you can sort of skip a year if you're trying to maintain your own garlic going forward. It's got to go in whether you want to or not, and I was feeling pretty tired this year. I didn't want to go out and plant it, but I am so glad that I did. One thing I'm trying again this year is to overwinter some of my pepper plants. Now, I have previously managed to get a pepper plant to overwinter for 3 years, and then it got really, really cold one year and it was just over for that poor plant. But I thought I would give it another go because the season here is not quite long enough for those really, really heat-loving crops like peppers. And if I can get a jump on it, not having to raise them from seeds, then I will hopefully be able to get more. So this one here, which is looking pretty sad because it's been frosted on, and I'm fingers crossed it's going to come through in the springtime. I didn't prune it or anything, I just left it there. And I put the garden cover on before any frosts came. I actually put the cover on so I could get the final peppers to ripen, which has worked really well. I got the full harvest off it. And there's another one buried in the back somewhere there. The cover crop in this bed has gone really well with being covered, so the chickens couldn't get it and it's not had any frost go directly on it. So this garden bed's pretty happy. And I also tried digging out one of the peppers. It was a paprika, actually, from the bed where the garlic is growing. And I potted it up and moved it to my little mini greenhouse to overwinter. So we will see what happens in the springtime, if that has been successful or not. The thing about plants is they die slowly. So I'm pretty sure they're still alive right now. They seem all right, but it's possible that they have had too much cold stress and they're not going to come through in the springtime. So it's a bit of an experiment. I haven't tried it for a wee while, and my fingers are crossed that it works out because I love growing my own peppers. They taste incredible. You can't match it from the supermarket or anywhere else. So I really, really hope that I'm going to have extra time to get more peppers off these plants this year. So those are my reflections on the season just past and my hopes and my sort of ideas for the season ahead. I really, really enjoy this little pause, this interlude in between the seasons. And if you happen to be in the Northern Hemisphere where you're in the thick of it right now, it is just full on harvest season, know that your rest, your pause will come along before you know it.